Texas Tech head coach Joey McGuire has Texas Tech rolling, but can he get the Red Raiders all the way to the college football playoff and maybe more?
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into The Portal. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football writer and recruiting analyst. Thank you for making The Portal your first listen each and every day. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com. Red Raiders today. We're going to talk about how Joey McGuire's got this program headed in the right direction. He's off to a good start, 2-1 in bowls. And he's a Texas guy recruiting Texas players, getting kids that other schools didn't think they were going to be able to get. And to help me break all of that down, what's going on, my brother? Locked On Texas Tech host Chris Level. This is a really great story because it's not easy to win in Lubbock. What are y'all, 4.5 hours to Dallas, give or take? I mean, it's not exactly in the Metroplex, and that's the closest major city. Just give me your first 10-second take. Like, for those that don't know about McGuire, you and I talked about it off air. Elite story, and I'll give a few details too. But why has he been successful at Tech?
Well, this is a great college town. I mean, there's 300,000 plus in the greater Lubbock area. But you're right, there's not anything, Albuquerque, Oklahoma City, the Metroplex, everything's about 4 hours away. But Joey's just, why they hired him was from a recruiting standpoint. They needed to up that aspect of their program. And I think but then the rules started to change. And I think they're trying to capitalize with the high school aspect and the portal, aspect of things. And I'm not sure where it goes from here, but Joey's just been a great, he's got a lot of energy and a lot of positivity. And he's a culture guy. And I think in this day and age, that's what's so important on trying to mesh all these new parts together every single season, which you kind of have to do. It's a lot of new pieces every single year. I mean, you're thinking about, typically it was 20 to 25 with the recruiting class. Now you're looking at closer to 40 to maybe even more than that when you take your high school and your portal additions. And so can you mesh all that together quickly? And I think Joey's done a really good job of that.
Yeah, he has. And for those that don't know, he was 14 years at Cedar Hill High School, one of the best programs in the Metroplex, greater Dallas area. They were a perennial program that was in the state playoffs. And he ended up at Baylor, and he moved on from Baylor to being, he wasn't even a head coach anywhere else at the college level, but ends up at Tech. And a lot of people are like, well, we'll see how this goes. And he's got, look, Texas Tech doesn't go more than 3-4 years without a losing season very often. You know what I mean? That's just historically the way they play. And last year they averaged, this is awesome, 37.6 points per game. Now, we both know they need to acquire more defensive talent to get it rolling further. But after you run an exciting brand, and that's one of the things I want to talk about, it makes getting kids from the portal easier. It makes high school recruiting easier. And while he's got insane amount of connections in the Lone Star State, I will bet you my bottom dollar that they're going to start getting a few kids, if they want, outside the Lone Star State every now and then, just to quote unquote supplement what they get inside, and not just the portal. It's getting to be kind of cool to go there. This is why I love college football. I obviously talk recruiting every day on the portal, but roster management in general, it's different at UT than it is at Texas Tech. Sark can go anywhere. You could argue it's the easiest program in the country to win at. You could put it in the conversation. It's different at Tech. I think they're doing the right things by having the offense the way they do. I think keeping James Blanchard, that was huge as your general manager. You needed all those things to go right, and they've done it. Why do you think they're able to keep everything together and keep building like this? Is it personality with Joey? I don't know him. So what is it with that?
Yeah, Brian. Well, there's, I think to your original point, Mike Leach gave you an identity years ago, and I think you largely have kept that, but you've always had your best teams when the defense is a part of that as well, obviously, and. I think as far as keeping some of this continuity together and why there's a lot of alignment here Okay. And I don't know if it's like that at every place. There's a lot of places out there that have two different collectives, or maybe the school president isn't a big athletics person. There's some piece that's not just on the same page with everybody trying to go all in the same direction. And fortunately here, from the athletic director to Kirby Hocutt to Joey, and then you've got these donors. I mean, there's a former player named Cody Campbell who has kind of spearheaded a lot of this NIL effort in the Matador Club, and there's several others, but in Dusty Womble, who are key factors in the athletics aspect of things from a donation standpoint, but they also are regents.
Oh,
okay, which is the high food chain here, and they kind of decide largely like how this university system operates. Not that they're favoring one, but they understand the importance, and so I think you have alignment, and I think that's the biggest thing. And you haven't gotten to the top of the mountain. You haven't won a conference championship, and I think everybody's hungry, and that's so the chase is on. So you've got motivation, you've got alignment, and you've got resources. I mean, Brian, they spent $250 million on one of the ends of their stadium, and they renovated the end zone. But then a lot of this was a football only complex that's got they went and looked at Oregon and Clemson and everything they could to pull ideas, and it took about a year and a half to build, but it's now completed. And so, because there's some of these folks that were donating that wanted the brick and mortar component. We want something that will be here for a long time. Players will come and go, but we want something that we can all be proud of and that helps whoever's coaching this program or whoever's the athletic director here, that will stand for a long time. And then on top of that, there's a lot of oil and gas money here in West Texas, and a lot of folks that are tied to Texas Tech. And so all that, and again, you're not guaranteed anything here. That's what we need to make clear. You haven't earned the right to do anything, but you are in the hunt and you're trying. And it's much better to try than just to go, man, hopefully things will fall our way and all that. No, you're actively trying to win championships, and with what the rules are currently, I think they're trying to take advantage of that.
I think they're doing a great job. So just an off-the-cuff question. Obviously, they know how to score. You got two new coordinators there. You got Mac Leftwich. You got Coach Wood. You got guys that I like Leftwich. I kind of know his tree in a sense because G.J. Kinney is a guy I covered in 2021 at UCF. He was under Gus, and that's a rising star. You and I talked about it. He'll eventually be at an elite program. He's at Texas State. So I'm not worried about the offense as much. Do you think all the things that they've done, portal, high school, is going to help Tech at least close the gap with defensive recruiting enough to make them more competitive when they play somebody? Okay, this week we're going against a fifth-year senior quarterback. This dude can spin it, and we just can't play cover three all day and let him pick us apart. Are they going to be able to get enough athletes on defense to make it more competitive on that side of the ball?
Yeah, that was, an obviously a tough decision for Coach McGuire to make a change with Tim DeRuyter, longtime, coach, former head coach, and Tim and Joey had known each other, but the defense and Joey, that's he's a defensive guy at heart. Yep. And you knew, or you kind of wondered aloud whenever in the middle of the season you're scoring, you're up in Fort Worth, you're up 31-13, middle of the third quarter, and you can't hold the lead because you give up 75-yard pass here, 80-yard pass there, and you end up losing a close game. And that's kind of the difference between you not playing in the Big 12 championship and you just going to the Liberty Bowl. I mean, it was one more conference win, and you're in Arlington, and you beat both of the teams that played for the conference championship. And I think it really aided Joey. But defensively, they needed to, get a lot better. And I think they were really old last year. They sent 4 draft picks, I think, to the NFL on the defensive side of the ball. And they kind of were much younger and inexperienced on the defensive side of the ball. And I think that they, maybe gambled a bit and thought, okay, but it didn't work. And you were okay in some games. You legitimately played good defense, but you couldn't sustain it. You went from, one Saturday you can't stop anybody in Stillwater, Oklahoma against a not very good offense and a freshman quarterback, and the very next week, you're shutting down one of the best teams in the league, and it's like makes no sense on the consistency. So, Brian, what they did is in the portal that they tried to fix both aspects because they were one of the worst pass defenses in the country last year. Statistically, they added about 4 DBs that are all 6'2", 6'3", or taller, rangy, experienced. I mean, we're talking from North Dakota State, from Mississippi State, on and on it went, Purdue. But what I was a big fan of, and this is where it's the chicken or the egg, they weren't very good up front last year, and you couldn't create enough pressure. So it doesn't matter how good your guys are in the back end. If you're asking them to cover for too long, it's just not going to work against the skill, the quarterback play, and the coaching in this league. So they went and added 3 interior defensive tackles, and then a guy named Romello Height out of Georgia Tech that –
whoa, he can get after it.
Yes, and so they added that and then didn't really lose any of their younger pieces that they're trying to grow up and develop. And so it was kind of best of both worlds. But you added Lee Hunter from the aforementioned UCF, who was a second-team All-Big 12 guy. Texas wanted him. You added, Coach Wood was able to bring one of his D tackles. Because that's the thing at Houston last year. Offense was their problem. Defense was not. And defensively, statistically, they had one of the top 25 defenses in the country by every measure. And he brought one of his defensive tackles that's got 2 years to play. And then they added a kid named Skylar Gill Howard from a Group of 5 school. And then you added Romello Height. So I was excited about that. As anything they did in the portal is what they did up front. They also added 3 key offensive linemen too, because it was a trenches situation in the portal is what they were. And those are the hardest ones to get. There's only so many big people in the world. And they're the hardest ones to get. You can get receivers and DBs and even quarterbacks, but the big people that are quality, that's what defensively, that's what they wanted to address. And I think that they added potentially 6 to 8 new starters and didn't really lose anybody that they were counting on from their younger developmental part of their roster. And so it's kind of best of both worlds.
When we come back, we're going to get into the roster for this next season, pieces they added, because I think Texas Tech's got a chance to win the Big 12 this next season. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. Even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to get in on a fourth quarter comeback, you can do it. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Here's an example. You're going to love the ability to use FanDuel for live betting because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether you're backing your favorite team or looking for a player to hit that game-winning shot, never feel like you're going to miss out on a chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Chris. Texas Tech has a pretty good base roster. You just talked about some of the D tackles, and I was going to bring that up. So you hit on that. Lee Hunter's a guy. I know I covered him at UCF. When you shake Lee Hunter's hand, you don't see yours. That is a good sign. He's a great guy, by the way. Yeah, I wouldn't want to get after him on the football field or in an eating contest, but otherwise, he's a great guy. I think the Tech's defense is going to get better. They used NIL, but here's the question, and I talked about this with John Garcia Jr. from Rivals and some other people around the recruiting world. They've got NIL, but is it crazy NIL to get where they need to be? Because like you said, Hunter, Texas and other schools won. Texas doesn't lose too many of those battles. What level is the NIL to help them in recruiting and the transfer portal?
I knew the numbers were high. I didn't, there was ESPN recently did an article and they kind of indicated it was a $10 million portal class. I don't know. Yeah. $10 million portal class. I think it ruffled some feathers, honestly, but I mean, Texas Tech's trying to win. This is within the rules. And there's donors that are like, I'll pledge this. And one thing I'll say about like what they do here from an NIL standpoint, it's not, every school does it differently, but these part of the Matador Club here, it's tied to community service. So these kids will be at the South Plains Food Bank. They'll be at the United Way. They're helping building houses. It's not just go sign an autograph and here's this big check, whatever. They are out in the community service and all these things, and they go read the kids at school. I mean, all these things. So I do like that. I think they're very smart about like kind of tying all this to giving back to the community of Lubbock and West Texas in general. But it was, I mean, they were willing to pay premium dollars, and that's what you need. They identified, okay, that's the biggest thing. You hope you chose correctly, because they had some choices to make. Like, do we want this guy or this guy? We can only afford, and so you hope you picked correctly. And that was where the James Blanchard and all the vetting that they had done, trying to narrow their focus, and then trying to figure out, okay, how is this going to look? Does this piece fit? And all that stuff. They did. They paid the premium top dollar for it. And again, they're trying to front load a lot of what you're doing here before the rules change or potentially change. So a lot of this money will be paid out initially before the revenue share starts. So that's kind of was their thought, is like, let's take advantage of this loophole before we can't really operate this way, and collectives potentially could go away. So they'll try to do the same thing in basketball as well. But yeah, they weren't shy about making very solid offers. And I think with that, you get a good name in the agent community. And because you pay on time, you do what you say you're going to do. And I think that what they have found out here is that not every school is that way.
Oh, that's 100% true. I know that for a fact.
Yeah. So you pay on time, and you get exactly what they say that you're going to get. I mean, it's all happening. And again, so agents were like, if we've got a client or a player that is getting interest, and Texas Tech was good to have involved, and maybe it upped the price or whatever. But I think the agents in some ways helped you because you did good business. And I think that certainly paid off a little bit too, because you were operating the way you said you were going to operate. Not everybody did that.
To that point, do you think Texas Tech will at least be in play this upcoming season because of the roster additions, doing a good job with NIL, identifying talent to be in play again for the Big 12 title?
Yeah, you've guaranteed yourself nothing, but what you've done is you've guaranteed yourself a chance. I don't know if you're going to be considered the favorite. There's going to be a lot of folks that think you are one of the favorites. There'll be others that point to, because here's kind of the group of schools that bring a lot back. Kansas State, Iowa State, BYU, Arizona State, obviously, who won the league last year. Baylor was on a hot streak at the end. They bring a lot back as well. And Texas Tech. So you fit in that group, and pick your two. I don't, and it comes down to quarterback health and how quickly everybody gels these new pieces. And because I'll say this, Arizona State was picked last in the league last year preseason, and they won it. So it's difficult to project this league, and not everybody plays everybody. And so you kind of have to look at the schedule, all these things. Bottom line, though, is Texas Tech will be relevant. They've given themselves a chance. And I think they are saying it, and I'll say it as well. If you're not in Arlington, it's a disappointment. I mean, this is why you played this game. I mean, that's your stated goal, is to get to and win a Big 12 championship. And I think you try to put your best foot forward, because originally they went into the portal cycle going, and Joey said this, hey, we're just going to add about 8 to 10. We're going to kind of supplement, and we know we need, some certain things. I think they saw as people entered the portal, the crazy amount of production that was in the portal. And then you've got some donors, and you realize how close you were. And so I think people kind of said, I'll help out. And then it just kind of grew and grew, and you just kind of kept going, and then it all fell into place. And before you know it, you potentially have a new starting tight end, a new starting running back, 3 new starters on the offensive line, 2 to 4 starters on the defensive line, 3 to 4 starters in the secondary. And these were all, these services loved what you brought in here. It's either the first, second, or third ranked portal class. You brought in a starting kicker that barely missed any field goals at Buffalo last year. I mean, just little things like that I just think they really checked every box, and they're over in the spring. They've got more players that are going to go through the spring, and so some folks on this roster will get squeezed, and it's kind of a tryout this spring. They'll have to make some tough decisions, but they ended up signing in the 17, 18 range, and you don't necessarily have spots for everybody, but you don't have to cut it down to potentially to 105 until, what is it, like July 1? So this spring will be kind of a tryout for some folks. So if some kids are still young and haven't really gotten it yet, and they're just kind of waiting their turn and they're not really putting their best foot forward, they may end up elsewhere. But I think Tech was looking at trying to mitigate risk and saying, hey, there's a sure thing out there that's got measurables, that can run, that's got production, and let's keep adding. And that's what they did. And we'll just kind of see how many chairs are left to fill when spring is over with, because there's some of the guys currently on the roster that may not make it or have a spot.
When we come back, we're going to look at the longevity for Texas Tech. This program's headed in the right direction, but how long can they keep chugging? Joey McGuire, lifelong Texas guy. He's coached at Baylor. Before that, he was at Cedar Hill in the Metroplex. He's got it rolling. The boosters like him, or they wouldn't be throwing out more money than he expected. Am I wrong to assume here, Chris, that Texas Tech, at the bare minimum, will be a program in the top 5 or so moving forward of the Big 12? Every now and then you have a year where everything goes wrong injury-wise, all that. Barring something like that, is this a top 5 Big 12 team?
I think they would be, everyone involved that we've talked about would be massively disappointed if you're not. I think you're trying to do everything within your control to put your best foot forward. I mean, you're paying top dollars to hire good coaches. You are well resourced, as we've talked about. There's the alignment factor, and then obviously you need a little luck and you need some consistency. But they've been good here. They're just ready to graduate from like that 7-8 win territory to that 9-10-11 win territory, and that's the hardest step to take. And it's easier to get good than it is to stay good. But there's really, I think that all the folks involved here are saying we have no excuses. We've done everything we could to put our best foot forward here, and they are. I don't know how many of the Big 12 schools are going to go with the full rev share. There's rumors that some won't. But Texas Tech is going to be one that is going to throw $15 to $16 million of rev share strictly toward their football program. And the way they have viewed it, and every school can treat this differently, as we've all learned and read and everything. This is who brings in the revenue, so they're trying to treat it like a business, and so they will get that much percentage of the revenue share on how much revenue that program brings in. So they will do everything they can to play ball at the highest level. And again, you're guaranteed nothing, and it's very hard, but I don't see any reason why you wouldn't continue to try and do everything you can in your power to make sure. Because, I mean, Shield Wood, for example, he's on the fast track, and Houston basically said, Willie Fritz, who I think is a phenomenal coach, and they're going to win at Houston, but Shield Wood basically was like, we couldn't afford to keep Shieldwood based on what Texas Tech was offering. We couldn't do it. And, at some point, SEC and the Big Ten, they come look at your staff and go, well, we can pay a lot more for these guys. We got a lot more TV revenue. But so I just think there's levels to this. But yeah, Texas Tech trying to do what they can to keep continuity and keep their coaches and then play ball at the NIL level at the highest levels, which is tricky because when you start talking what Ole Miss is doing and Ohio State and Oregon and Auburn, I mean, on and on. These are hefty prices to pay, but they've got people that are willing to do it.
All right, Chris, I appreciate it, man. Very insightful for those listening here on the portal. We talk recruiting every day, but I like to get the insight from the people that cover the programs directly. Obviously, what's going on with Texas Tech. Tell everybody where you can find your work.
Yeah, well, Casey Cowan and I are longtime radio guys here in Lubbock, and then we started doing this podcast with Locked On Texas Tech a few years ago. We got out of the radio deal, and absolutely love it. We do it 5 days a week. So Locked On Texas Tech, and we cover it. I also do a website called RedRaidersports.com, part of the Rivals.com network, and then I'm on the radio and football broadcast for Texas Tech. So yeah, we've got it covered. And Brian, you were very kind to have me on, and we'll see what all this portal stuff, if it bears any fruit come the fall of 2025 here. So we shall see. But it's been fun to cover this stuff because it's like Christmas come early in the middle part of December, whenever you start like, oh, we got another one and another one and another one. So there we go. But yeah, that's where you can find what we do covering the Red Raiders.
I appreciate it. You can find us if you just go on Google, LO the Portal. There's Locked On's network is great. We're growing in a lot of ways. You can get it YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you can. Thank you very much. Like, subscribe. I will see you again soon.